There you are.
Here I am. I'm still in the same spot, but um, I've enlarged the area, her playpen area. Um, and I must say, crate training has gone surprisingly well.
Good.
Um, I crate her from like 8 to 12. I bring her out for lunch, and then I crate her again from 1 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
She's really only had one accident in her crate.
Good.
But it's been good. And the only thing I don't do is I haven't moved her crate to a second bedroom.
Okay.
But I cover her crate with the crate cover, so she can't really see me, but technically she can, kind of hear me still.
So she can't see you, but she can hear you.
Correct.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. But potty training, it's still in progress. So she hasn't. So I let her out at 6:30 every morning. I bring her right down for potty. I do a little walk with her as well, though, with every potty walk. And then I bring her up 15 minutes later, feed her breakfast. So breakfast in the crate was challenging the first 2 days or so. Like she skipped maybe like 3 or 4 meals.
Sure.
But she got the hang of it, and now like she finishes everything, food and water, within 5 minutes.
Good.
I take her bowl out, I put her back in the crate, and she sits in there for about 20 minutes or so, and then we go down for potty.
Okay.
And so like when she's in her crate, she's good. It's in the evenings where she's still having like accidents.
Yeah.
So when I let her out at 5, I bring her straight down to potty. Right. And once she comes back up, she won't even be able to last 2 hours.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. She goes almost like every hour.
Yeah.
With like no warning. I don't know if it's because of the play, because I play with her too. But she'll, between like 5 to 7, typically she'll pee like another 2 times before dinner at 7.
Okay. So for puppies, they typically have to potty after eating and drinking water.
Right.
Within about 15 to 30 minutes after waking up from a nap.
Yep.
Or typically around 10 to 15 minutes into play.
Okay.
Okay. So if you're playing with her like at 6 o'clock and then, you play with her for half an hour and then you halfway through at 6:15, she stops and pees. You want to start learning that pattern because that's how we prevent those things.
Okay.
Now there's going to be exceptions to the structure. Remember the every 2-hour rule, right?
Right.
Because life and all that stuff. So like if let's say we took Pretzel out, she pottied, we're back up at 6, that's when our clock starts, but then I play with her, right? And then I go, last time she peed after 10 to 15 minutes of play. So about 10 minutes in, I'll take her out again, she'll pee, and I'll bring her back up and I'll keep playing with her. And typically they're fine after that.
Okay.
And then I would just continue with, I would just pretend it was still at 6 o'clock. So then at 8 o'clock, I would take her out for her next potty schedule. Now, when you said she goes every hour, right? Like kind of without warning. Now you know that pattern that, let's say Pretzel is out. I put my timer for 45 minutes. And then after 45 minutes, I'll take her and I'll put her in the kennel for an hour and 15 minutes so that it's 2 hours. Then I take her out to go potty. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Because you're trying to teach her to hold it. Right? Trying to put her on a schedule. And everybody always asks me, train my puppy to let me know when they got to go potty. Right? But puppies don't learn that when they like paw at you, that it means go potty. They learn that it means go outside. So then your puppy will start pawing at you every time they just want to go outside.
Right.
Okay. So then, and then if you don't and then the owners will complain like, well, I don't know when my dog actually has to go potty, or if they're just wanting to go outside. I'm like, that's why I don't teach that, because you can't differentiate. And then they'll ignore the puppy thinking they just have to, go outside, and then the puppy pees. So,
sorry, Jesse, can you repeat that? 45 minutes and then putting her in the crate for.
sure. So you noted that Pretzel makes a mistake about an hour into the 2-hour schedule.
Right.
Okay? So if I took her at 6, by 7 o'clock, you're assuming, or you've noted like she's gonna pee, right?
Right.
So now that we know that, then I go, all right, well, if I know she's gonna pee an hour in, then just before that hour, 45 minutes, 50 minutes, I'm gonna put her in the kennel.
Okay.
I avoid the potty mistake, and it teaches her to hold it that extended hour.
Okay.
Okay, because she's not going to want to go in the kennel.
Right, right.
And if she does go in the kennel, I don't clean her up. I leave her until, the next potty break.
Right.
And she thinks, well, if I pee in here, then I'm going to have to sit next to it for the next hour, and that's gross. So then that's what teaches puppies to hold it longer.
Right.
Okay? So potty mistakes are normal. They're part of the process. But there's a difference between learning mistakes and the mistakes that work against you. Every mistake she has within the home works against you. Okay.
Right.
So any mistake that is in the kennel works for you, because that's what deters her from pottying in the kennel in the first place. And eventually it transitions to where she just holds it. She's okay. Sorry, she looks suspicious when she was wandering over there.
No, we just came back up from a walk.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it's like, so for both like humans and dogs, like typically when we wake up in the morning, we have to use the bathroom. Right. That's like a habit. And then for puppies, it's the same thing. You're creating a habit where you're saying like, every 2 hours you go to the bathroom, and then it's every 3 hours, and then every 4 hours, and every 5 hours. And eventually they just learn to hold it. And you put them on that schedule where she'll go morning, after work, and before bed. Okay. But it requires you making her hold it.
Right.
Okay. And when you said like there's more potty mistakes in the evening, right? Because that's when she's getting more free time. That's completely normal. Okay. Now it's just adjusting that schedule. Like, okay, I know she pees every hour, so I'm gonna just assume, and at 50 minutes, 55 minutes, or whatever, I'm gonna put her in the kennel for that last hour, take her out to go potty, then back inside, and then she's free for another 50 minutes or whatever, and then you take her outside again.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. How much playtime is needed? I mean, I know puppies want to play all the time, right? But how much playtime is needed, and what is included in playtime?
It's really just personal preference.
Okay.
And I have a different take on things than most trainers, but I'm going to give you like more so like of a balanced approach. I'm really disciplined and all about structure and discipline. I'm not against play. Okay. But because I specialize more so in behavior cases,
right.
That makes up a large component of my clientele, is that even with my puppies, I approach it very similarly because I'm trying to prevent problems.
Sure.
Okay. So play is healthy. I encourage it. But don't look at play as a means of exercise.
Okay.
Okay. Play is fun. Play is engaging. Play is excitement, right? Walking in a structured manner where we go, I walk with Pretzel. We walk to the park nonstop. I stop. I let her play at the park for 15 minutes. And then back walking home nonstop, no peeing, no pooping, no sniffing everything, no saying hi to dogs. It's just walk, right? So that's structure with play in the middle.
Right.
Okay. So play within the home. One thing I always tell people is do what's realistic to you. Don't do anything for the dog.
Right.
Okay. So like I get people that, because they have a puppy, will play with the puppy for like an hour every day, plus they walk them an hour. Okay. So that's 2 hours out their day dedicated to their puppy. And I go, that's fine. Like, I don't care. But are you going to do that for the rest of the dog's life?
Right.
And that's where people go like, well, it's a puppy, so I thought I would do more of it now. I'm like, no, what you're doing is you're raising the dog that you're going to have in the future, right? So that's why I said from 9 to 5, crater, right? Because that's what life would look like in the future.
Right.
So you're prepping the puppy for that. So when those transitions happen, it's not a big deal. So, you know, and they'll say like, well, no, I wouldn't realistically play with my puppy for an hour and then, you know, walk them for an hour because once winter comes, like we're probably not going to walk as much or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Or they're like, you know, they don't have a family yet, but they plan on having kids in the future. That's going to change things, obviously, right? So you dictate how much play you give the Pretzel. Just think about realistically speaking, what would you be willing to keep up in the long run? But also, you start and you stop all the play.
Right.
Okay. Pretzel does not initiate any of the stuff. And the reason why I do that is because let's say you're working from home. We fast forward to the future where Pretzel's, you know, potty trained. Maybe you've given her some more like freedom within the home and stuff. And you're tired from work and you just want to like sit down, veg out and watch TV. And she comes over to you and she's like jumping on you and barking at you and like she's going to play. And you're going, I'm too tired, right? She's not going to pick that up. She's going to just keep barking at you because she's used to starting play and you reciprocating.
Right.
Okay. But if I start it and I end it, and then when Pretzel initiates play with me, I correct it where I tell her, no, I'm not going to play with you right now. And I don't do this to be mean. I do this to prevent the problem of being barked at and jumped at and all that stuff in the future, because that's what happens almost always. Okay. So that's the most important thing. You can play with Pretzel as much as you want and as little as you want, but you just want to do it on your terms.
Right.
Okay. So, when you put things to the dog or Pretzel asks or commands or requests for things and you comply, she's learning that pattern.
Right.
Okay? And it's not like she's trying to take over your home. It's just, you know, dogs are meant to be out hunting, roaming, you know, like doing stuff outside. They're not meant to be within a home, right? So like her energy levels, like they're not supposed to be guaranteed 3 meals a day, stuff like that, because they're supposed to hunt. Sometimes there's failed hunts and things like that. Is the human energy levels and the dog or puppy energy levels tend to be pretty different, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and they'll go all day. And that's why we do rules and discipline, because, you know, I understand it's a puppy, and what people typically think is my puppy is high energy, they need more exercise, is really no one's told the puppy no.
Right.
That I'm not going to do that right now. I'm not going to play with you right now. So once the puppy learns like, oh, I can't just do whatever I want whenever I want, then you start to see him calm down.
Okay.
Okay. So even
she'll have episodes typically at the end of the day, or like when she's let out during lunch.
Yeah.
You know, the zoomies, exactly. Actually, it freaked the hell out of me. Like in the beginning when she started doing, I'm like, hang on, did I get a dog with neurological issues? And she's still doing it. But is that reflection of not enough exercise, or not enough walks, or is that just normal?
It's two things. Okay. One, it's technically normal. Like anybody who's had a puppy, you can ask them and they'll say, oh yeah, the zoomies, right? That's why I knew right away when you said before bed and at this time, and I said the zoomies, and you said, yeah, it's completely normal. Okay, so there's no neurological issues here.
Good to know. I had to read up on it too, and they're like, no, this is normal.
Yeah. It's just bursts of energy. Okay. Now, how big are we expecting Pretzel to be?
No more than 20 pounds.
Okay. So some things that I factor in is one, most people find it to be cute, right?
I don't.
You don't? Okay, that's fine. No, that's fine.
Zoomies?
Do. Yeah.
Cute?
Yeah.
Oh my God, no. Because one, she runs around at top speed, so she darts, and she growls.
Sure.
Too.
The growl's not aggressive.
Yeah.
The growling isn't aggressive.
Okay.
It's normal.
Okay.
It's just like, it's like, when people watch sports and they start screaming and yelling, they're not yelling because they're being aggressive. They're yelling to cheer on
Right.
team, right?
Okay.
And before Pretzel, I'm sorry, have you had dogs prior, or is she your first dog?
No, she's my first.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, the good thing is you got a good breed. Okay. Because I get people that they get their first dog ever and they get like a Rottweiler,
Right.
and that is not wise at all. Okay.
Yeah.
So Pretzel will be a good learning dog for you. Okay. And just so you know, even after, our puppy training and stuff is done, you can always send me an email to ask questions. Okay.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Because there's gonna be stuff that you're gonna be unsure about. So like for instance, with the Zoomies, you said she's growling, right? So it can give you the impression of aggressive.
Right.
It's not aggression.
Okay.
It's just her way of communication. She's revved up and like she's playing. When I play with my pit bull, she'll growl and she'll show teeth and stuff like that, but we're playing.
Right.
Okay. But for the first time dog owner, these things can be misinterpreted as aggressive. And because of that misinterpretation, they start to behave differently with the dog, and then that creates more issues.
Okay.
So with the Zoomies, if you don't like them, you can correct them. Okay, and then we'll talk about that towards the end of the session here.
Okay.
You can correct anything you do not like or you do not want. Okay, don't feel bad. It doesn't matter that she's a puppy, because if, like, let's say Pretzel was doing the Zoomies with her mom, right? Her litter mom, and then the litter mom decided, like, I don't want you to do this anymore. What do you think she would do to stop Pretzel?
I don't know. Grab her
Grab her how?
by her neck
How? With what?
with a mouth.
Yeah, right?
Right.
So to make that more simple, she might nip or bite her, right? But you're also correct. You could pick her up by the scruff. But she's using her mouth and going, stop that. You're annoying me.
Right.
Right? And they do this as young as like three to 4 weeks with the litter. Okay. If the puppies are annoying the mom, she'll growl at them or she'll nip at them to like set a boundary, and they'll walk away yipping, and then she doesn't care. Okay. That's how they toughen their puppies up, and that's how they stop things. They use physicality to correct behaviors they don't want. Okay.
Right.
There is no such thing as timeout in the dog world. Okay. So that's a human thing. Humans can reflect. Humans can think about what they did. Dogs do not.
Right.
Just keep that in mind. So other clients don't mind the Zoomies, right? And I'll tell them, like, let's say I have a German Shepherd puppy. I'll tell them, would you want your dog to be doing this when they're 100 pounds? Right? And they'll go like, no. And I'm like, well, then I would stop it now. Because the longer your dog goes with doing it, the longer it becomes a habit, or the more it becomes a habit, and then the harder it's going to be to correct in the future because they've done it for so long.
So they don't grow out of it?
Not always.
Okay.
Okay, so these things that you might read on the internet of like, oh, your dog will grow out of it is I don't want to say it's a lie, but it's a gamble.
Right.
Okay. There's no guarantee unless you're being proactive. Okay. So people put things on dogs too much. Oh, they'll grow out of it. Oh, this will go away. Oh, when it'll take them 3 years, but they'll mature. I'm like, 3 years? I don't want to wait 3 years.
Yeah.
Right. I want it now. So then we simply just correct it, much like the mother would. Okay. So if you don't like the Zoomies, you can stop it. You can stop it as soon as tonight. Okay. Now this is where the tricky part comes in. Okay. So if Pretzel's mom would bite her to stop her, right? And what do you think that you would or could do to stop Pretzel?
I don't know. Pick her up?
Okay. Is that like biting her?
Not quite.
Okay. So then what would be another guess?
Pick her up by her neck? I don't know.
You're closer. Okay. but no. What else?
I don't know, like hold her head and make her look at me. I am failing.
Okay. Well, think about it. If her mom would just bite her,
Right.
right? Now you said pick her up by the scruff and pick, you know, that's something the mom would do, right? But with not picking up her up by the scruff and she's just biting or nipping at Pretzel here, what do you think? What would be like an equivalent? You know, think about human to child physical consequence.
I don't know, hit her paw.
Okay, you're getting close. I think you're close, but this is completely normal. Okay, so are you familiar with Caesar Milan?
Yes.
Okay, did you watch his old TV show like Dog Whisperer?
No, not all of it.
Okay,
Only, an episode here or there.
okay. Have you ever seen him when he takes his hand like this, right? And he goes like that to the dog? You ever
Okay.
seen that?
No, I've
No.
not.
So Caesar he calls it the touch, but he does his hand like this, right? So it looks like teeth.
Okay.
So he corrects the dog by making contact with them, replicating a dog bite. Okay. But
Okay.
the key factor here is physicality. Okay. So you said hit her paw. Okay. And and everybody does this because with humans, the tricky part is physicality is seen as abuse. Okay. I was raised old school. I was spanked. Um, and it was not abuse. I don't look back and look at it as abuse. I look at it as I needed it and I'm thankful for it.
Right.
Okay. When done correctly, discipline is healthy. We need it. This is why kids are so bad nowadays because nobody disciplines their kid.
Right.
So we would need to find an equivalent to correcting Pretzel, right? But the problem is because it's physical, people have a hard time with it because it's a puppy. But the mom wouldn't care; she would just bite her.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the options, and we're going to start with the simplest option because I've been doing this a really long time, and I know if I give you what the ultimate answer is, it'll most likely be like, okay.
Okay.
So the first thing I would start with is what's called a pet corrector. Okay,
Right.
you can get them on Amazon. It's a
Yep.
red can. Have you
Yep.
seen this?
I've
Do you
seen
have
it.
one?
Mhm. I don't have it.
Okay, so you can order one. Um, what neighborhood are you in?
West Loop.
West. Okay. Uh, there's a store in Lakeview that used to carry them because I used to do puppy classes there.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if she still has them. Otherwise, you can get them on Amazon.
Yep.
Now, if Amazon has them for like $25, $30, I suggest you call the store because when they go low on quantity, they like jack up the prices.
Okay.
And it's all it is a can of compressed air. It's all it is.
Right.
And it makes a hissing sound. The theory behind it is when your dog does something you do not like, you use the hissing sound. Okay. And it's supposed to startle them. And it's to disrupt the pattern of the behavior.
Right.
So if he starts to zoom, the moment you see the zoom, you would then use the corrector. You wouldn't let her zoom for 5 minutes and then correct because she's too far gone.
Right.
Okay. Most of the time, the sound does not work. Okay, because it's just that's all it is. Okay. So then the next step is I use the compressed air and I spray the puppy on the hindquarters. Okay.
Okay.
Now, because it's compressed air, it has a cool feeling to it, which usually freaks out puppies. Okay.
Okay.
So you're going to spray her on the hindquarters. She's going to feel the cold and she's going to shriek most likely and run around like all crazy. Okay. Everybody goes, oh my God, no. And I go, leave the puppy alone. It's just air. Okay.
Right.
It's just the puppy, you know, dogs don't spray each other with air.
Yeah.
So it freaks them out. But if you console her, one, you teach her, yes, you should freak out when you feel this. Okay. We don't want her to learn that. Two, you negate the correction.
Right.
So my mom never spanked me, and then right after spanking me said, come here, let me give you a hug. I'm sorry. It was just like, if you don't want to get spanked, you don't do it again.
Right.
Okay, so it's the same kind of concept. They recover, they're perfectly fine. It actually helps toughen them up. Okay, people create problems because they console or try to console for the wrong things.
Right.
There is no consolation in the dog world. With the human, you know, you can come back and you can mend something and say like, look, I'm really sorry I said that to you. I was upset. I didn't mean it. I apologize. And the human can go back to that moment and know what you said and know what you're referring to and go, it's okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Right? Dogs don't do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I would suggest just getting one canister.
Okay.
Okay. Because they either one lose their effectiveness relatively quickly because it's just compressed air, or two, it doesn't phase the dog at all. Okay.
Right.
If you start to learn like she's susceptible to it and she's responding to it, then I would say you can order a couple more or whatever to have on hand. They tend to go. I had a client use one up within like 2 to 3 days, and so they bought a case of them. Okay.
Okay.
And they were like $25, so you probably spent around $400 to $500 on these cans of compressed air.
Right.
So that's usually the first thing I get people to do. And then typically how this works is the compressed air stops working, and then we move to the next thing, and then that stops working, and then we move to the final thing. And that tends to be the thing that works. But for the human, they feel better because they did the process
Right.
as opposed to jumping to the end conclusion. Because it shows you, oh, wow, like I did do these things and it is not effective, right? Now, I've only ever had in the last 10 years, one puppy, one dog be scared of the compressed air throughout their life.
Right.
Only one dog, okay? And ironically, it was a Cane Corso. Are you familiar with that breed?
No.
Cane Corsos are like pit bulls twice the size.
Okay.
They're massive, okay? So there was this huge beast of a dog scared of air, okay? So, but that was one time in 10 years. Most puppies outgrow it.
Right.
Okay, so it's like me. I outgrew spanking at some point.
Right.
Right. So then so like when my mom would spank me, I would laugh, and then she'd get my dad to spank me because he was stronger. And then that worked for a bit, but then even that stopped working after a while. That it became more psychological punishments. You know, like you can't see your friends for a month, or you can't play video games for a month, right? But we don't have that with dogs. For dogs, it's all about physicality, but dogs will escalate physicality to the extent needed. That's the difference. That's why people tend to struggle, because they don't keep escalating until they win. They stop at a certain point because they feel bad going firmer than that.
Right.
But another dog will just come in and bite them even harder. Like they don't care. So that's the psychological aspect behind it. But for her, she's still small, you know. So I would try that first. And the way it would work is the moment you see the zoomies, you would spray it. She should stop and kind of freak out a little bit, and then you ignore her. And then she recovers, and maybe she goes and lays down. That's good. So you said, I don't want you to zoom. And she goes, okay, then I'm going to just go over here and be calm. Okay, there should be a shift in behavior. If she goes back to zooming, then I do it again, or I spray her on the hindquarters. She freaks out, she runs around, she sits in the corner, I ignore her, and then maybe she sits there for like 20 minutes because she's freaked out, like I don't know what the heck that was. Then she falls asleep. That's fine.
Yep.
And then let's say the next night, same thing, 8 o'clock comes around. Oh, you know, she's getting that look. You spray the can, she startles, but you don't even need to spray her. She just stops and like walks away and lays down. You're disrupting the pattern.
Right.
Okay. And then eventually, maybe you do this, you know, every day for a couple of weeks, and next thing you know, she stops zooming. Because you
A
never.
lot of times she zooms outside though. Like she does it in the elevator. She does it in the hallway.
You can correct that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should bring the pet character along.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, that's what you do.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, the only time I would not care if she zooms personally is if she's outside free at the park or something.
Right. Right.
Like,
Yeah.
like so it's like kids. Like for me, if my mom said we're going to church, I didn't run around the church, you know, and then afterwards we go to the park, you know, because if I behaved well, there was a park right across from the church. My reward for being quiet was to go to the park and then play for 15 minutes.
Right.
Right. So it was time and place. My mom was like, you can't do that here. But when we go here, you can run around, go on the slides, jump around, be loud, be a kid. That's the place for it. And then we'd go home, and then inside the home, I had to be quiet, or not like quiet, but like, you know, not loud.
Yeah.
I would be playing and stuff. But then if I was playing too loud, my mom would say, go outside if you're going to play that loudly, you know? So it was time and place.
Right.
So same thing for your puppy. That's why I say, me personally, I only play with dogs outside. I don't like playing with them inside, because I want them to associate calmness within the home, and then play is for, you know, the dog park, at the park, you know, type of deal. So then they start to, just like kids, associate when we're here, we're calm. When we're here, we can play. When we're here, we can zoom around, things like that.
The only challenge I feel is, and again, I don't know how much exercise, how much playtime they need. And because she hasn't had her shots, so I can't bring her to a park, right? So all I can bring her is on walks, and those are like 15 minutes walks around the neighborhood. And, you know, she socializes with people. She is extremely sociable. Like she wants to meet every single person and every single dog on her walk. But I'm having to pull her away from like dogs because she hasn't had all her shots yet. Yeah. So I don't know how to compensate that lack of play in the park.
So so for in terms of exercise, okay, and how much play,
right?
Just to give you a structure, typically it's 5 minutes of exercise per month. So if she's 2 months, then 10 minutes of exercise. But that means, in my opinion, it's high intensity exercise, running, right, zooming around, 10 minutes of that. For walking, for me personally, when I had my Pitty, when she was a puppy, I got her at 3 months, she was going on an hour walk every day. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Because it's a passive exercise. It's not running and you know, thumping and, you know, and all that stuff. It's just walking. Okay. And for a dog your size, you know, she may not be able to do a full hour like nonstop. She might do like, you know, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes. So she's getting an hour of exercise. You're just splitting it up across the day, right?
And that's what she does. I mean, I actually walk her. I now have a reputation of walking her too many times, like 10 times a day, which I don't. But I bring her out, and every time I bring her out, and again, so just going back to Potty, every time I bring her out to Potty, I don't just bring her down for her to pee and bring her back up. I do at least a 5-10 minute walk. So I don't know if that is good or not. Sorry?
It's fine.
Because I kind of want, I'm not sure if I am getting her used to the fact that, oh, you know, I have 10 minutes to go to Potty every single time.
No, what I would do is first you go outside, let her potty first.
Yep.
Do your 10-minute walk, and then come back and give her another chance to potty.
Always at the same spot?
Ideally, yes. It'll make your life easier. Because when you revisit the same spot, dogs are all about habit.
Right.
That you'll create this habit of she'll just go and just do her business, which makes your life easier because then it's just, okay, your business, then we're back inside again.
Right.
Okay. So the way I structure my walks is in the beginning, I give my dogs 5 minutes to potty. Then we do a nice, you know, hour-long walk. And then at the very end, they get another break to potty. Okay. Right. And for you, it's the same thing. I'd go out, let her potty first, you know, and then start your 10-15 minute walk nonstop. No sniffing, no greeting dogs, no peeing all over the place, just nonstop. Then when you come back, you let her potty at the very end.
That almost sounds impossible though, like with how she wants to sniff and meet every single one. Like I am constantly pulling her away from whether it's people or dogs or things. So I bring her out. I now bring her out to the same spot for her to go potty. She does really well with peeing there for the last 2-3 days, but not when she's pooping. Like she'll poop as and when, along her walks.
Oh, that's fine.
So I don't know how to get her to pee and poop at the same spot at the beginning of the walk and at the end of the walk.
For now, because you have to give some wiggle room.
Right.
Because she's just a puppy.
Right.
Okay. What I would do is I would just, if you know she'll pee right off the bat, I get that out the way and I just walk.
Right.
And at some point she's gonna poop. Right?
Right.
And I might time like how long into the walk does she poop? And maybe it's 10 minutes. Okay. And then I just keep track of that. And then we might see that the poop starts to get earlier in the walk or starts to get later in the walk because she's learning to hold her bathroom better. So then if I know, okay, she poops 10 minutes into the walk, then what I'll start doing is timing my walk so that at that 10-minute mark, I'm telling her, okay, you're free. And she's peeing and pooping because I told her to, not because she had to go in the middle of the walk.
Okay.
Okay. So that, you're learning her pattern, and then we're using that pattern in our favor. So earlier you said, I know she potties about an hour into being in the home. She cannot last 2 hours. And then I said, okay, well, good. Now we know her time frame. So at 50 minutes in, 50, I would just kennel her so that I prevent her from having the accident and I teach her to hold it for longer. Okay. So it's just learning these patterns and then turning around and using them to your advantage.
Okay.
Okay. Now with her being all over the place, welcome to having a puppy.
Yeah.
Okay. For puppies under 6 months, I don't care about stuff. Okay. Because right now, your main focus, in my opinion, is behavior.
Right.
Okay, because behavior is the hard thing to fix, but in the future, but it's easier to prevent now.
Right.
That's why I told you, start kelling her away from you, prevent that separation anxiety, get her used to that schedule. Because in the future, if we didn't do that, you wouldn't be calling me saying, Jesse, you would be complaining like she knows sit and all this stuff, but now she barks every time I leave the house.
Right.
Right. So that's what you would care about more. You wouldn't care about the fact that she knows how to sit and lay down and all that stuff. Right. So that's why I flip it. People have it backwards typically. They think the sit, the stay, the down, and all that stuff. And they go, no. They forget about it. You can always teach that. You can teach that off of YouTube. It's the behavior stuff that's hard.
Yeah.
Okay. So
that hasn't been my focus, to be honest, like with the sit, come and all. I maybe do like a minute or two kind of sit training, when she is treat motivated. But that's not my focus. If she does it, great. If she doesn't, that's fine. I've become really good at ignoring her barking and her whining.
Okay. When does that happen?
So when she goes in the crate, typically she's like when she first goes in, she's fine. Now she knows she's not fighting to come out, right? When I put her in, she'll just sit, and she'll stay, even during meal times. And then I think when she typically goes in, she'll take a nap. It's when she wakes up, or sometimes when she hears me, that she'll start whining or barking.
Okay. How long does that go for?
She doesn't, not long. It doesn't go on for, I want to say, it doesn't go on for more than 5-10 minutes. Sure. So I just let her, do her thing and ignore her completely. And a lot of times I go into my room. So, my sound is further away from her.
Sure.
The barking, like in her play area, when, like during the evenings when she has like free reign, She barks. Sometimes when I'm like prepping her meal, she barks.
Excitement.
Sorry, Jesse, what was that?
Excitement.
Right. She barks when I bring the vacuum cleaner out.
Sure.
I think she barked a lot more when I first had her, but because I have not given her any attention with her barking, she's kind of learning that doesn't really get her anything.
Correct. Good. So good job on that, because typically people would do something, right? So as long as that barking is going down, you're good. Okay. So like you said 5 minutes, and then maybe next week you notice 4 minutes, and then 3 minutes, and then a minute, and then 10 seconds, right? It's going down. Okay. If it stays static, or if it starts to go up, then we have to address it. Okay. So going back to the corrections, that's what a correction is for. So if the barking stays static, yeah, it's only 5 minutes, 10 minutes or so, but it's still 5 to 10 minutes that you have to deal with her barking every time you come into that context, right? So then you add it up in total, and it could be an hour worth of barking over the course of the day, right? Is if she starts barking, you would use your pet corrector to stop it. Okay. And you may notice that with the pet corrector, it'll stop certain things, but not other things.
Right.
Okay? Because the intensity of the behavior outweighs the correction, the impact of the correction. Okay. And this is stuff that you'll learn as you go along. But you know, for me growing up, like if I was like, mom, right? It was like spank, like don't, like, I'll get to you when I'm ready, right? Like stop annoying me. It's the same thing. Okay. So you're not being abusive. You're not being mean. You're just setting rules, and you're getting it done now, which is easier because your puppy is just a puppy. They're like a blank slate. Right. So that in the future, you don't have this dog that's annoying you and all that stuff. Okay. Because you're shaping the dog you're going to want in the future. Today. You're doing that today. You're shaping the dog you want in the future today. Right. Okay. People tend to give too many leniencies to puppies because they're like, it's just a puppy. And I go, no. This is when they're learning. Yeah. This is, if they bark and chew and like play and bite at you and stuff like that, right now it's cute. But you know, when I get the bigger dogs, I'm like again, like, you know, they'll get like a pit bull. I'm like, yeah, it's cute now, but now you're gonna, in the future, you're gonna have a 75-pound pit bull biting at your clothes. Is it gonna be fun then? Right. Right. We stop that stuff now. So what I would suggest is make a list of things you don't like. You know, the zoomies in the home, in the hallway, in the elevator, barking at you when you're making the food, barking when you bring out the vacuum, anything that you don't like, okay, you can correct. Okay. And it could be something like, you know, like someone else, like you could tell like another dog owner, like, oh yeah, she's doing the zoomies and I correct it. And they might go like, what? Why would you correct it? That's a dog being a dog and she's a puppy and she should run around. I go, so not your dog. I don't want them. Right. Because you're going to come across that. Right. You're going to come across people that are going to disagree with how you're raising your puppy. It's not their dog. Okay. You pay for the vet bills, you pay for her food, you pay for the training, you pay for her toys, right? You pay for the pen, you pay for the rent. You can have what you want. Right. Okay. So just keep that in mind. I don't care what people's rules are. Everybody has their own rules. Okay. I just care that there are rules. Right. Okay. So I would suggest doing that. And the way corrections work is earlier, like I was spanked. If I didn't do my homework, if I didn't do my chores, if I talked back to my mom, if I did something I wasn't supposed to, I was spank. Right. Okay. So it's one consequence or one type of consequence for a multitude of behaviors. Okay. For the exercise, I'm fine with what you're doing right now. I would keep in mind that if you take her to potty and you take her on a longer, like 10, 15-minute walk and you end it and she doesn't potty at the end, she might have to potty shortly after when you come back inside. Right. Because activity, moving around makes puppies have to go. Okay. Okay. That's why even with my dogs, they're like 8, 9 years old. I walk them, and at the end of the walk, after like they'll pee and everything in the beginning, we go for a nice long walk, and we come back and they'll pee again at the very end. Okay, because of all that activity and stuff.
Right.
So if she doesn't pee at the end of the walk, I would make a note of it and just keep a good eye on her. Or, you know, let's say you want to create the pattern of always pee at the end of the walk. You could do it where when she pees at the end of the walk, you give her freedom, and then you just watch for that hour mark. Or if she doesn't pee, I just assume you're probably going to have a potty mistake pretty soon.
Right.
So then I can kennel her for 30 minutes after coming inside, and you can always come, like, pop her back out, like you'd break away from the schedule. Then she pees, and then I go, okay, now I'm going to start your 2-hour clock.
Right.
Okay, so there's different ways of working around it. It's just whatever's going to work for you and Pretzel.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions?
So nipping, biting, chewing, like the pet character. Okay.
Yeah, because you don't want that.
Okay.
Okay. So again, it's something that you want to stop.
And so what's the method that you said eventually after the pet character wears out?
It's usually the bonker.
The what?
It's called a bonker.
Bonker?
Yeah, it's just a rolled up towel.
Okay.
And you take a towel, you roll it up, and you use rubber bands, and you bunk it up.
Okay.
Okay, and I can send you videos so you can see it just to get familiar with it.
Okay.
But it's physicality. It's, you know, firm, but it's a towel, right? The problem that you may have is because you have a small dog and it's a puppy, you know, is that people think that they're bonking the dog firm, and they're not. It's like, you know, when it should be like boom, like a firm one, right?
Right.
So like you can't bite your puppy, you know. So we have to replicate physicality some way, and then so we use the bunker. With larger puppies like German Shepherds and Pit Bulls and Boxers and stuff, it's easier for people because they know they're going to grow to be big, and they tend to be sizable puppies as it is. But you have a little tiny thing over there that it's harder, you know, psychologically for the human to correct their puppies that way, you know. And what sucks is that sometimes, you know, like my Chihuahua, he's 8 pounds, right? And when I got him at a year, he was a feral dog. He lived outside his entire life for that first year, wasn't potty trained, wasn't crate trained, was very leash reactive and would bark at lunging dogs and try to attack them and stuff. And have you ever seen a prong collar, the spiky one?
Yeah.
On dogs, okay? So they make them for little dogs. So I got him a prong collar. And he'd start lunging and barking at a dog, and I would correct him, and then he would go spinning, okay? But then he'd go back to lunging and barking again. Now I would correct him again, and he'd go spinning, and I would correct him, and then he'd stop. But it would take 3 times, okay? And everybody would, because I'd be outside on the street, and people were like, what the hell, what are you doing to that dog? He's so small. I'm like, it's not like it's even phasing him. Because it takes me 3 times before he finally stops. But because he's 8 pounds, you know, people are like, oh, wow. But I'm like, but he keeps doing it. So it didn't matter that he was 8 pounds and that he was spinning. He needed very tough corrections. But for the average person, they correct them. They go, oh, that's too much. I can't do anything more than that. But the dog needs more. Okay. So it's not about how the human feels. It's about what the dog needs in order to behave themselves. That's how I think. Because that's how dogs think.
Right.
Okay, so like, even though she's, you know, a tiny little puppy, if she annoyed a dog, for instance, let's say, I know she's too young for the dog park, but let's say you're at the dog park and she's annoying a dog, they would just bite her. They don't care how big she is. You know, it could be 100-pound dog. They'll just bite her. Go like, leave me alone. They don't care that she's like 10 pounds or whatever.
Right.
Okay. Humans do. Dogs don't. Okay. But that's what I end up working people to. My suggestion is you go through the steps because you'll feel like you'll feel better.
Okay.
Like you won't have like regrets of like, well, what if that would have worked? And I'm over here bopping my dog, right?
Right.
And I tend to use that stuff inside the home because outside people would say stuff, you know, like if you're carrying around a towel and your dog jumps, you whack them, somebody's going to say something. Okay. And that's the problem, you know, is people are misreading it. And, you know, it's so I get so many puppies and dogs that were trained by other trainers that use positive only. Okay. And it doesn't work. And if it worked as effectively as they say it does, because it's the most popular form of training, okay, everywhere does positive reinforcement, is why is there still bad dogs then? You know, like if it's such a great form of training, there would be so many more well-trained dogs. You know, when I go outside, most dogs aren't trained well. They're like pulling their owner. They're all over the place.
Right.
Like not my dogs, not the dogs that I train. My dogs that I train are on the owner's hip. They don't move.
Right.
Okay, because I train to a higher degree, but the methods that I use are frowned upon in the dog training world, but they're effective. Okay, so she's gonna teach. You're gonna learn a lot about dogs and dog training with Pretzel. And the way I train is according to the owner and their life with their dog. Okay, so like I trained a lady. She had like a 6 to maybe 8 pound Yorkie. She was a tiny little thing. Okay?
Yeah.
And we didn't train her like I trained my other dogs, because she never took her to the dog park because she would get trampled over. She's only 6 pounds, and she was, you know, so she didn't care if she pulled. And she was completely friendly with everybody.
Right.
Right. So for a dog like that, I'm like, there's no need for me to train this dog like I would train other dogs, because she doesn't take her off leash anyways. She's super social, and she's only 6 pounds. You know, so I don't force my methods on everybody. I'm logical, and I go like, yeah, you don't really need this style of training. Like it doesn't matter to you. But if she would have told me, I go hiking with this dog, she goes off leash at, you know, on forest preserves and this stuff, I would have absolutely trained her dog the same way I train any other dog, because she would need that level of training.
Right.
Okay. Let me think here. So we reviewed the potty training.
Yep.
So we're just going to tighten up a couple of things. But that was good that you made good progress this week. And also for like the barking in the kennel and stuff, you can also use your pet corrector to correct that. Okay. And then if I would give it 2 to 3 times when you correct something, and if it seems ineffective, I would just make a separate list of like stuff that it's ineffective with.
Right.
And then you'll start to like, you'll notice like maybe there's 15 things you correct, right? And the pet corrector stops like 3 things, but then there's 12 other things it doesn't stop. Right? It shows you just like the where you're going to fall short in terms of addressing her behavior. Now, when you correct things, you know, she is learning every day.
Right.
As people expect that once they correct the dog, it's never going to be a problem again. That's not how it works. Okay. I still correct my dogs to this day, but I correct them once in a long, long while.
Right.
Just like with humans, like I know how to drive and follow the speed limits and all that stuff, but I still from time to time get a ticket. Okay. Yeah. No one is 100% consistent. It's your job as her owner to keep her in line and to reinforce all the rules. And you'll see it'll be a lot in the beginning, but then as time goes on, all that stuff should start to dip. And then it's less of a problem. Okay. Other questions?
So for now, I mean, with like walking on a leash, well, she hates her leash with a passion. Right? She's always pulling. And so I got the gentle leader thing. Now she is very sensitive to sound, like any sound. Like she would be sleeping, I would just walk by her, just that little creak on the floor, like she'll wake up and she'll look like she's startled. And she's extremely resistant to anything that's new. So like even a grooming brush, I would just hold it in my hands. I would come into a play area and she would bark at the brush. And then, so a couple of things, right? Leash walking, the constant pulling, and I don't know how I'm gonna get her to wear that gentle leader thing, because it probably will be something that she will resist and resist a lot. And so I feel bad, like pulling at her collar, at her neck all the time. And then like the whole, she's constantly resistant to anything that's new. And showering, bath time, like it freaks the hell out of her.
So it sounds like you have a nervous dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's genetics.
Okay.
So don't worry about that. What I would suggest though is that you work her through these things now. Okay. A lot, like when you said when she's sleeping and you move, like, and she kind of startles, like it's one thing for a puppy to wake up, but it's nothing for them to startle.
Right.
Okay. And you've only had her a couple of weeks, correct?
2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah. So I mean, she's still like, it usually takes puppies 2 to 4 weeks to like settle in. Okay. So there's certain things that may go away, like for instance, when she's sleeping and you're walking around, as she gets just used to that, you know, and she stops caring. If it stays consistent, that's definitely signs of a nervous dog. Okay. So with the gentle leader, I'm gonna see if I can find some videos. I'm gonna send you a bunch of videos. Okay. I'm gonna send you videos on the bonker to review. Don't worry about even doing anything. Okay. I'm going to send you some videos on counter conditioning. This is to help you with the grooming brush. Okay. So dogs aren't meant to be groomed. They don't brush each other. Okay. They lick each other, but they don't grab a brush and like start brushing and all that stuff. Right. And then of course they're not meant to have anything on their muzzle. So the resistance is normal. That's something that almost every puppy does. So I'm going to find videos for you to watch and just start. So with the counter conditioning, when you bring out the brush, like you'd be like brush and you give her a treat and stuff to make her feel better about the brush.
Right.
These things take time. Okay. Now, like, let's say I'm walking into a PetSmart and she's putting the brakes on, right? Most people stop. I just keep walking. Okay. As long as there's not this kind of pressure, because if she's putting the brakes on and you're moving forward, the pressure's coming from the back of the neck.
Right.
As long as she can't slip out the collar, there's no risk to her throat. I care about here. Okay. And if I have the gentle leader on, then I can just keep walking, no problem, because nothing's going to happen to her throat. It's all on her nose. Okay.
Right.
Because we're bigger than her. Right. Like we can overpower her. It's just mentally, she's putting the brakes on and going, I don't want to do it. But if you just keep walking, her being like this is going to be very difficult. That eventually she's just going to start walking forward and then she's good.
Right. And I have no problems doing that. And I've been doing that as long as, you know, she's lagging behind. I'll just keep walking and I'll pull her along and she'll eventually catch up. Mm-hmm. It's when she turns around, she goes in the opposite direction. Like for example, she meets someone, she wants to say hi, right? She'll jump. So I'll be pulling her in the opposite direction. She is looking this way at mm-hmm. the individual. She mm-hmm. goes on her hind legs.
Oh, sure.
Right? Because she's jumping up and I'm pulling her back. Mm-hmm. And that's where it's the throat. Mm-hmm. You know, so sometimes I pull her to her side so that she gets down. But I feel like with every walk, I'm having to do that, and I don't know how long more can I do that for, or with how much intensity do I eventually hurt her?
So I wouldn't worry about hurting her, because you're just walking. You know, that's why I was like, I just keep going. You know, it might be a half a block, it might be a block or whatever, but eventually you're going to get far enough from the stimulus that she's going to stop caring and redirect. Okay. If you want to remove the concern of the throat, you know, either put the gentle leader on and just walk. She's going to buck around, she's going to spin and all that stuff. I just keep walking, because she can only do one at a time. She's either going to walk with you or she's going to jump around and spin, right? But if she's jumping around and spinning and trying to walk at the same time, it's very difficult, that eventually the dog just gives up and starts walking. Okay. And if you don't want her to like to, you know, jump around and bop herself on the head on the concrete, then I walk on the grass, right?
Not a ton in my area.
Yeah. So I understand the concern, you know, and it's not that I don't care about dogs, okay? It's because dogs bite each other. Like I tell you, like, you know, puppies, when you see them at the dog park, like they're running and tackling each other and they're bopping their heads and all that stuff. And then when the owner's walking them, they care that they bop their head on the sidewalk. And I'm just like, it's the same thing, you know? So I would really try just forcing the gentle leader. If it's too difficult, don't worry about it. Like you've only had it for a couple of weeks. And I know there's like a lot of things, right? That is like, oh, like this and this and this and this, and it's your first dog.
Right.
Fortunately, you're having to do topic by topic by topic for yourself. Because if you'd already had dogs before and this was your 5th dog, this would be easy peasy. Because you'd be like, oh, I already know what to do with this now. But now you're just learning everything. Okay. The good thing is she's a small dog. Okay. And none of the stuff that you're telling me is a concern right now.
Okay.
Okay. The only thing that I would say is concerning is that she's a nervous dog. And that what that can turn into is in the future, she barks at everything. Okay. But that's what I'm here for. Right?
And how do you, like, are we at a point where we might want to start doing something, or should I?
Just make her do stuff. Just make her. Okay. Because when like, let's say she puts the brakes on and she goes, I don't want to go over there. People stop and then they go the other way. And now you just taught your puppy, if you don't want to do it, you do this. And then I'll listen to you and I'll go the other way. I don't. I keep going. Like, you're going to deal with this. Who cares if it's a loud truck? You're going to walk past it. Okay.
And she's not nervous like that. Though, like, so she'll literally stop and sit to watch cars go by, no matter how loud they are.
Okay, good.
So those don't startle her anymore. Like once in a while, yes, something that goes really loud, or like, you know, she sees something new, like the water hose that's being rolled around. Like she'll approach with caution. She'll be nervous. You can definitely see that. She'll try and, you know, do her paw thing. But I don't necessarily walk her away from it. You know, I just let her have her space and, you know, go explore. Yeah.
I would do one of 2 things. One, you let her explore. Like, let's say the sprinkler goes off and she's like, what is that?
Right.
She like slowly kind of goes towards it. I would ignore her and just allow her, right? Because that's curiosity.
Right.
Or I just keep going. Okay, do one or the other. Because when you just keep going, you're saying that, don't worry about that, like just keep going, right? Just keep going. And that actually is part of the desensitization process, because then it's like, well, if mom doesn't care, then why should I care?
Right.
Okay, so you can do both.
Okay.
But you might come across things where it's like she's going to be startled and she's going to stop and like, oh my God, and then I just keep it moving.
Okay.
So I'm going to send you videos on the bonker, counter conditioning, and the gentle leader. And then look into the pet corrector.
Okay. Yep.
And then we'll see how she does, okay?
All
Otherwise,
right.
everything sounds normal. Nothing out of the ordinary here, okay?
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse.
Bye-bye.
Bye.